This is an important spring for Wisconsin football, and it all starts at quarterback. I'll explain. Locked on Big Ten starts right now.
You are Locked on Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to Locked on Big Ten. I'm Craig Sheeman. Thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. We always appreciate you. And you know, we're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today, and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. We're going to dive into the Badgers' spring football practice right around the corner and the spring game around the corner as well. Jim Harbaugh has a Buckeye on his team. We'll tell you how that relationship is going, plus players storming the court. Nebraska's athletic director discussed that. We'll have our classics and live action coming up on the Big Ten Network this weekend as well. In the meantime, if I could ask you, please subscribe and follow Locked On Big Ten for free wherever you get your podcast. That way you get the latest episode of this podcast as soon as it becomes available each and every day. So the Wisconsin Badgers are putting the finishing touches on their spring football plans, and a lot hinges on their new quarterback as Coach Luke Fickell enters year number 2 at Madison. I also think this spring is extremely important as the Badgers will go through a bit of a transition of styles, if you will. And it better go smoothly because the Badgers have one of the toughest schedules in college football this season. But Luke Fickell is ready. He's an experienced coach. He'll be good to go, get his team ready here. Look, he came to town last year, kind of eased his way into it, right? Kind of learned the culture in Madison, and he learned his team. But he wanted to open things up with an air attack, but he couldn't for 2 reasons, at least not at the pace that he wanted to. Number one, quarterback Tanner Mordecai just wasn't that guy. Not a knock on him. He just wasn't that guy. That's not who he is at this level, despite throwing the ball all over the place before transferring from SMU. Secondly, Fickell inherited a team that was built to pound the rock. His offensive line was huge, probably the biggest and strongest offensive line he's ever coached. And he also had a set of great running backs in Braylon Allen and Ches Malusi. Malusi, of course, unfortunately got hurt. He'll be back, by the way. But Fickell went out and got himself another quarterback in the transfer portal. I mean, that's what people do these days. And he went to the University of Miami and got himself Tyler Van Dyke. And Tyler Van Dyke, we've talked about him a little bit here on this podcast. Interesting person. I'm down here in Florida, so I saw him at Miami a little bit. He's a wild card. He has a lot of ability, but he's very inconsistent. Last year at the U, he threw 19 touchdowns, but 12 interceptions. I'll give you some examples of what I'm talking about. In week 2 this past season against Texas A&M, he completed 70% of his passes and threw for 374 yards, 5 touchdowns, and no interceptions, right? Everybody's talking Heisman at this point. Against North Carolina State, he threw 3 interceptions and took 3 sacks and a loss. He threw 3 interceptions and a loss to Georgia Tech. After starting out 4-0, the Hurricanes lost 5 of the next 7. That's what I mean by a wild card with Van Dyke. And, you don't know which quarterback you're going to get or which one Wisconsin is going to get. So we'll keep our eye on that situation. But he's not always just up and down. His best year was 2021. That year he threw for 25 touchdowns and just 6 interceptions. It was great. Threw for almost 3,000 yards. If Fickell gets that Tyler Van Dyke, then maybe the Badgers will have that air attack that Fickell envisions. There's another option. Braedyn Locke, hear me out. With another year of development under his belt, do you remember when we used to develop guys? Bring them up as youngsters, freshmen, let them get some experience, sophomore, junior, senior. Now they're good. Remember those days? Instead of transferring in the next guy every single year. Yeah, I think Braedyn Locke is going to be worth a look for this football team this year. Very talented player. Look, he had to come in, and this is going to be a pivotal spring session for him, by the way, to really show that he's taken another step forward and has developed and that he's ready to go. He's going to be competing. Last year, he played in 5 games, started 3 when Tanner Mordecai went down with an injury. And again, this was all as a freshman. So there were some bumps in the roads, but in fact, he had some good moments. He was the Big Ten Freshman of the Week in late October when he led the Badgers down by 14 in the fourth quarter. Remember that one against Illinois on the road? Let him do a comeback. He became the first Badger freshman to post 2 games with 240 or more yards passing. There is something here with this kid. He's from Rockwell, Texas. There he threw 129 career touchdown passes, over 11,000 yards. In fact, he threw for 36 touchdowns his senior year. Look, I used to live in Texas. You know about Texas football. Quarterbacks who tear it up offensively in 6A level football in Texas are usually pretty good. In fact, there may be a few guys that perhaps you've heard of over the years that have played quarterback in the state of Texas. Oh, I don't know. Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Matt Stafford, Drew Brees. That's just a few from semi-recent times. I ain't even go old school, Bobby Lane or Slinging Sammy Baugh, but I won't do that. Just stick with the current guys. Look, we spent a lot of time talking about the Badgers offense. Let's put that aside for a minute. You can't win in the Big Ten without defense. Badgers got some help at linebacker in the transfer portal. Jaheim Thomas comes in at 6'4", 240 pounds from Cincinnati. He's played both Cincinnati and Arkansas. Obviously, he and Fickell know each other from the Cincinnati days, from where Fickell came from. So there's familiarity there. Tackett Curtis, another linebacker at 6'2", 225, transferring in from Southern Cal. Leon Lowry, 6'4", 239, coming in from Syracuse. All those players are expected to start. They're up at the front of the depth chart right now as we speak, as a matter of fact. So there's some help there in the middle of that defense. As far as returning players go, I am a huge fan of Ricardo Hallman, their corner. I'm sure you are too if you're a Badgers fan. Got a nose for the football. He was third-team All-American, played in all 13 games last year. He was one of just 2 players in the country last year with 7 interceptions. Like I said, he got a nose for the ball. I mean, the one I remember is the 95-yard pick 6 he had against Rutgers. And I think that was at the end of the half. I think that was a pivotal end of the half thing, if I remember correctly. Phenomenal play. He even had an interception against LSU in the ReliaQuest Bowl. Guy's a good player, and he's coming back. So let's highlight some of the Badgers football schedule coming up, because it's going to be tough. And again, a transition year, kind of going from more of a running team to more of a passing team, and you got to do quarterback and all that stuff. And you're going to do it against some pretty tough competition. The first 3 games are at home at Camp Randall. First one is against Western Michigan. That's opening the slate on August 31st. That's followed by a game against South Dakota. It's the 3rd game that concerns me. But if you want to be the best, you got to beat the best, as they say. Alabama comes calling to Camp Randall. Now, granted, there's no Nick Saban this year. I guess that's good. But it'll be a huge test, nevertheless, for the Badgers. And then the following week, Badgers make the trip to SoCal to take on USC at the Coliseum. That'll be a tough road trip. Penn State and Oregon are both on the schedule. At least those are home games. If you want to look for a silver lining, those will be very difficult. Also tough games against Iowa and Nebraska, especially tough because they're at their place. Those are tough places to play at Kinnick and Memorial Stadium as well. So I'm very excited about the Badgers football season. I'm very excited to see Luke Fickell go from year 1 to year 2 and see how this evolves. I think he's a great football coach. And, I think he went in last year, kind of inherited a team and did what he could, got him to a bowl game. But I look for some interesting things this year. They could be a better team, but I don't know how much better the record will be, because this is a brutal schedule. It's always going to be brutal in the Big Ten. But like I said, Luke Fickell, he's the right guy. He's a good coach. I think good things will happen for the Wisconsin Badgers. We'd love to hear from you on this as well. You know, there are many ways to comment here. You can comment on Twitter or X at TalkBig10, number 10, of course, on YouTube, and then our website, TalkBig10, number 10, .com as well. When you are at the website, all of our former podcasts are there in order, chronologically. They're also grouped by teams that we kind of focus on that day. And also, you can get some swag there. You can Big Ten, get your team, get your pennants, your hats, your shirts, all that stuff is right there. You can get it right on the website. How do Buckeyes players on the Chargers like working for Jim Harbaugh? May have that answer, that and more. That's coming up here on Locked On Big Ten, your team every day. Passion, drive, and patience. That's what brings home the winning trophy. It also is what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. And with all the parts you need at all the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. And plus, you'll look good. You know, it's awesome. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Thank you for making Locked On Big Ten your first listen every day, especially you everydayers. Whether you're an everydayer or a part-timer, whatever, we always appreciate it. But tell your friends about us. That's how we spread the word here. I know you know some Big Ten people, some alum, whatever. Give them the word that we're out here every day with Locked On Big Ten. And if you don't mind, be sure to subscribe. And of course, you can share and follow and like Locked On Big Ten, your team every day. And don't forget our website at talkbig10.com. As you know, former Michigan football coach Jim Harbaugh is coaching the LA Chargers in the NFL. And one of his starting players is former Buckeye defensive end Joey Bosa. How does Bosa feel about having Harbaugh as his boss? Well, here's what Bosa had to say in a recent interview. He said, great first impressions so far. Has a lot of confidence in Harbaugh. He seems genuine, which is lacking in a lot of head coaches, according to Bosa. He loves football, and more than anything, all he wants to do is win. Bosa, of course, dominated at Ohio State from 2013 to 2015. There were 48 Ohio State players and 37 Michigan players on NFL rosters opening day last season. So the rivalry continues, but if you got to work together, you got to work together. All right, I want to talk to you for a minute about court storming. Been a huge, big issue lately with excited fans storming the court to celebrate a big win. Caitlin Clark was injured when Ohio State Buckeye fans stormed the court to celebrate the Buckeyes' win over Iowa. More recently, a Duke men's basketball player was injured at Wake Forest when fans stormed there. Well, Nebraska Athletic Director Trev Alberts released a statement on the matter. And keep in mind, the Huskers have had 3 court stormings just in the last few weeks here in the last couple of months. They occurred after Nebraska's men's team beat Purdue and Wisconsin, and also happened after the women's team beat Iowa. Every time Caitlin Clark gets beat, there's a storm on the court, right? By the way, Nebraska basketball has a great home court atmosphere. So I'll say that. But the Big Ten does have a policy regarding storming the court. It's not as strict as the SEC, where they will fine the team $100,000 for each incident, basketball and football, by the way. The Big Ten offers reprimands, like a light reprimand, and then a slightly more serious reprimand, and then the third time, maybe a fine if it was determined security wasn't good enough. Anyway, it's a little bit more vague. But regarding Trev Alberts' statement at Nebraska, he said the issue is not the home team and the home fans. The issue is the safety of the opposing team and making sure they get off the court safely. He said it's important that schools communicate the plan and the visiting teams adhere to the plan in place, both communication. All right. The Big Ten has not announced publicly whether any fines are coming Nebraska's way since they've had 3 offenses, but Trev Alberts did make that statement. So we got a long season. It's winding down for Juwan Howard and the Michigan Wolverines. And while athletic director Ward Manuel said 2 weeks ago that he hasn't thought about making a change at head coach, we think he was just being kind of polite and try not to make headlines until the season is over. This past week, Howard and the Wolverines hit the dreaded 20-loss mark. Home loss to Purdue. Wolverines players, they said it felt like a Purdue home game at Mackey Arena. The support of the faithful is waning, and visiting teams are buying tickets. He says it's been the toughest. This has been the toughest season of Howard's career, no question. It all started with open heart surgery in September. Then he had to suspend his best player for road games. The team has had injuries. There was even a reported skirmish between Juwan Howard and the team's weight and conditioning coach back in December. The team's fallen a long way since an Elite Eight appearance 3 seasons ago. You know, back in the day, John Beilein was a great coach, maybe the best coach they've had. His first year, he took over a bad situation, and they lost 22 games. That's the low, but then he built from that and won. He got things turned around. With 3 games to go, Juwan Howard will try to avoid breaking that 22-loss record at Michigan. Now, presumably Michigan will have another loss at some point in the Big Ten tournament, whether it's the opening week or unless they're going to win the championship. That's very unlikely. So another loss is coming. I'll put them at 21. That means Howard and the Wolverines will have to finish the regular season 3-0 and avoid tying that worst record in Michigan history. Now, let's take a look at the schedule. You think they could go 3-0 here? They play at Rutgers tonight, Thursday night. They are at Ohio State Sunday, and then close out the season at Chrysler Arena against Nebraska. That's tough. That's tough to expect them to go 3-0 there. They haven't had that kind of a winning streak, and I can't tell you how long. So we'll wish him well. We hope he avoids the mark, but it looks like an old record is going down, and it'll be a new one with Juwan Howard breaking the 22-loss season, the low record at Michigan. Just thought I'd keep you updated there. So take a look at basketball tonight. We just mentioned Michigan and Rutgers tonight. By the way, if you want to watch that game, that's 8:30 Eastern time on FS1. Nebraska is at Ohio State. That's the early 6:30 game on FS1. Women's action tonight. Wisconsin is at Maryland. It's part of a Big Ten doubleheader that starts at 6 o'clock Eastern time. And Illinois is at Michigan State, also 8 o'clock Eastern time on the Big Ten Network. Hey, I know you've heard us talk about this before. Locked On has all these channels, cover all these teams. They've launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube called Locked On Sports Today. Go there, check it out after you're done here, or check out another episode of Locked On Big Ten. Either way, subscribe to both, and you'll be in the mix, and it's free, and you'll be in the loop as soon as we release anything each and every day. All right, coming up, I want to take a look at, because it's Thursday, we take a look at the Big Ten Network. Usually we do Big Ten Classics. Not a lot of classics on the schedules, but more live action. So we will take a look at all of that. And that's what we do on Thursdays as part of our regular features. So we'll have some fun with that in just 1 minute right here on Locked On Big Ten. FanDuel, get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA players with teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, more, anything you can think of, they have. Tonight, Thursday night, NBA. I like the Warriors over the Knicks, and I like the Suns over the Rockets. In fact, I'd even consider doing a 2-team parlay. Got a 2-teamer on that, huh? Put the parlay together. You can do it right there at FanDuel. FanDuel.com/locked on and shoot your shot. FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. All right, so let's do this. Let's take a look at the schedule. Again, not a lot of classics on the schedule for Big Ten Network, so we're going to just hit the live action. If you're listening on audio only, we'll put it on screen and discuss in detail so you can follow along. All right, we'll start things off with action on Friday, March 1st. March is here. Can you believe it? March Madness, conference tournaments, all that right here around the corner. At 6 o'clock Eastern on Friday, we got Big Ten men's hockey, Penn State at Ohio State, followed by, it's a doubleheader at 8:30 Eastern time, Michigan at Minnesota. And then on Saturday, we started off with our highlights here at 12:30 p.m. Just afternoon, Big Ten Live. It is the basketball tip-off show where they get you ready for your day and all the Big Ten action. And then at 1 o'clock Eastern time, Big Ten basketball, men's basketball, Illinois is at Wisconsin. Again, Wisconsin is sliding. Illinois still with some aspirations of either a Big Ten title, Big Ten tournament title, which I think would be more likely, the latter, because it looks like Purdue has just about got that thing wrapped up. And then at 3:15, Big Ten men's basketball, Penn State at Minnesota. Both teams need some wins here to make some hay and have any kind of shot at an NCAA tournament. And, of course, at 5:30, it's more men's basketball. Iowa at Northwestern. Northwestern at home, pretty good, pretty solid team, and trying to make sure they get that bye, that double bye, if you will, in the Big Ten tournament once that gets started. So it's a Big Ten triple header on the Big Ten Network Saturday afternoon. Let's see what we got on Sunday. Sunday, we pick up the action at 2 o'clock Eastern time. It's women's basketball. In fact, we got a double header for women's basketball here. Technically, a triple header. No, double header for women and then more men. So start at 2 o'clock, Michigan State at Wisconsin. And then at 4 o'clock Eastern, we've got Nebraska at Illinois. Then at 6 p.m., a late start, we got the Big Ten Live basketball tip-off show leading into their 6:30 coverage of the men's basketball game between Rutgers and Nebraska. That's going to be Rutgers is going to come in there and want to punch them in the mouth, and Nebraska is going to just want to shoot and score because at home, Nebraska is just crazy good. And I've been touting Nebraska all along, but Rutgers is going to come in there and try and play some defense. So we'll see how that game goes on Sunday night. Don't forget the Big Ten women's basketball tournament is March 6th through the 10th. That's right around the corner in Minnesota, Target Center. And the men's tournament is the following week, March 13th through the 17th. So these are some things we get to look forward to. And you can check them out. We'll be all over them right here on Locked On Big Ten, your team every day. Many ways for you to follow us and interact us. Don't forget, follow us on Twitter at Talk Big Ten, number 10. And you can also hit us up there and the comments on YouTube. And don't forget our website, which you see the crawl on the bottom, talkbig10, number 10.com. And whatever you do, be sure to subscribe. It's free, and follow this podcast right now if you don't mind. It helps us out. So I always ask. And check us out on your favorite podcast app as well, and get the latest episode of Locked On Big Ten as soon as it becomes available each and every day. After this, check out another episode of Locked On Big Ten, or go check out Locked On Sports Today, our 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube from Locked On with all of our programs. I'm even over there sometimes, so you can check that out as well. Certainly appreciate our visit here today. More on our football previews for spring football, which is getting ready to start up throughout the Big Ten. And we'll keep our eye on everything going on with college basketball in the Big Ten, men's, women's, Caitlin Clark, the whole deal right here on your home for the Big Ten. Locked On Big Ten. I'm Craig Sheeman. Thanks for checking us out. We'll talk to you next time.